Hi everyone, my name is Cindy Fumbata and welcome to another episode of Hairapy Sessions with Cindy. My next guest is a really good friend of mine, Arisa Heald, and I'd love for you to meet her and join us on this next episode and about conversations about how hair ties into identity and beauty and self-worth. Help me welcome my guest, Arisa. Hi!
Hi!
How are you, girl?
Hello! I'm well. I'm keeping well. How are you?
Good, thanks. How's lockdown treating you?
I must say it is a humbling experience, but I'm enjoying the rest and just taking time to relax. And yeah, we're moving, keeping going.
I must say, I really miss you. I miss having impromptu dinners and walks,
girl,
and random
it's
swims.
So unfair.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those
all
of
the
you,
good things.
those of you who don't know, Arisa and I live quite close to each other. We live on the same campus. We both work at a school and live on the same campus, and we're used to having free access to each other. So it feels weird to be so far apart from each other at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you're well, and I'm glad that you're taking lockdown in your stride. Before we jump in, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from? All that exciting stuff.
Okay, cool. Well, like Cindy said, my name is Arisa. I am 25 years old. I'm studying at Rhodes. I'm starting my PhD now, which I'm super excited about. I'm from Zambia and then came to varsity here in SA, and I've been here since then. That's a bit about me.
Thanks for sharing that. Arisa, one of the reasons why I asked you to be one of my guests is, first of all, you're cool. You're cool people.
Oh.
And secondly, I love your hair. I've told you this a million times. And I think, particularly because of some of the conversations we've had around, ideas of self-worth and self-image and identity, you were one of the perfect people to share this platform with, and to be able to pick your brain about how you perceived your personal hair journey and your journey where identity and beauty lie in relation to your hair. So I'm super excited to have you on here. Yay. So Arisa, can you tell us, when you look into a mirror and you look at your hair, obviously there are other things to see there, but when you're specifically looking at your hair, what are you thinking? What kinds of thoughts and ideas are going through your mind? And obviously it can change from day to day, and depending on your mood, it might be different. But generally, when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and looking at your hair, what are you seeing?
Curly and big, and it's different from your stereotypical straight, hair. And I think a lot of people aspire to just have straight hair. Yeah, but I'm really happy with my hair.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm just going to make a disclaimer. You're going to see me swatting quite a bit over here, because I just realized there are lots of mosquitoes trying to eat me over here.
Oh no.
No, I'll be alright. When you were younger, was there ever a point where you looked at your big, curly, voluminous hair and you thought, I really wish I had, straighter hair, or hair that's, whatever adjective you tie to it? Was there ever that kind of phase?
Okay, in all honesty, so my hair has gone through a lot of phases, right? So when I was little, when I was a kid, maybe 3 down, I had very thin curly hair, not curly, thin wavy hair. And then as I started growing up, so maybe let's say junior school, and into high school, my hair was really long and straight. And then and then we went to Japan. So maybe disclaimer at the beginning, I should have said that I'm from like a mixed family. So my mom's Japanese, my dad's British. So I think that ties into my hair and how it's come out. So then after high school, we went to Japan, and we went to the salon, and one of the hairdressers there, who's pretty famous in Japan, he's like, "Oh, you've got such different hair from like every other Japanese person." And he was like, "I would love to try this new product on you." So it's like, so my hair had a little wave in it, but it was generally very straight and long. So I'm like, okay, cool. And at that time, and even I think until recently, I never really attached a lot of identity to my hair. Like, yeah, it's my hair, but like, what does that actually mean or look like to me or to other people, So then I was like, okay, cool. So we tried this product, but it was to make my hair like completely straight, like straight. And I think at that time, like, how there's been phases of like hair. So some like seasons people want really like maybe short, curly, bouncy hair. Some seasons people want long, straight. So there was like a phase where everyone wanted really long, straight hair. So I didn't like think about it much. I was like, oh, okay. And also I was young, so yeah. And then he put it was just after high school, so maybe 17, 16, 17, yeah, somewhere there. And then it was like there's such an irony in this story, because instead of it going, well, for a few days it became really straight. But after that, when I came back to when I went back to Zambia, my hair went like the opposite way. It went big and bushy, but not like, so the bushiness, or the bigness or whatever word, like over the years has become more. So initially it was like a slight wave or curl or whatever, and then over the years it's become more.
I'm just wondering, when you were younger and this hairdresser, this hairstylist wanted to experiment on your hair with whatever chemicals they were experimenting with, when you went back home and now it went from very straight to bushy all of a sudden, when all you had known, well, for most of your life, all you had known was the straight long hair.
Yeah.
Was there, first of all, how did you feel about that? Was it just it is what it is? Or were you cognizant of the change? And did it elicit a particular emotion out of you? So that's question number one. How did you feel about that change? And secondly, did you see a change in the way people treated you, in the way you moved through the world? Did people make comments about it? Yeah, just talk to us about that for a bit.
Okay, so I don't know if I attached much emotion at the time, particularly when like in the space of growing up. But more recently, yes. And I think having more conversations, and also people being like, oh, your hair, it's different from a lot of people's hair. So more recently, like finding out what hair means to people. So meaning and like, even people's experiences and what hair has, like the perceptions and things like that I didn't have conversations or didn't have like an awareness or realization about. And I was just like, hair is hair, I'm like, we all have different hair. But now being like, sure, hair actually has value, it has weight. And hair means a lot of things or different things to people, or no hair, things like that. Yeah.
So your mind is not playing tricks on you. I have changed locations because I was sitting on a bench and a gecko tried to eat me. I was being terrorized by a gecko. And Arisa knows how I feel about geckos. I'm not a fan at all, so I had to run away. So I'm sorry that my being terrorized by a gecko interrupted our conversation, Arisa. You were talking about how not all of the reactions to your hair or people sharing their opinions about your hair have been particularly positive. Can you tell us or share some of those engagements and interactions?
So I remember this little girl came up to me and she was like, "Oh, ma'am, your hair's so big, so bushy, so, you know." And like at that time, I was just like, "What? Why is this girl saying this to me?" But I think, like in retrospect, I'm like, actually, that comes from a place of her admiring straight hair and long, and you know, and I think her attaching meaning to that type of hair. And like when she saw my hair, she's like, "This is foreign. Like, why? You know, maybe like let's tame it." And in terms of taming hair, I think I've had quite a few people being like, "Oh, can we try straighten your hair? I think you'll look nice with straightened hair." And being like, okay. And particularly in my undergrad, I know a lot of people wanted to straighten my hair, but I was like, okay. And I also didn't think much about it. Like, you know, why? I was like, okay. I remember on several occasions, especially like, you know, the welcome dinners, those type of things. I was like, okay, let me straighten my hair. And then, you know, so my hair is very like wavy and curly / frizzy. So even within a few hours of straightening it would go straight back to this. And almost feeling like, you know what, actually, my hair is fine the way it is. I don't need to try do these other things because that's also just a lot of work and admin. And it really is, because I'll sit down and then have to like straighten it and then maybe get ready. And then before I go, I'm like, okay, I still have to straighten it more to get like all the, you know. Yeah, so I think it's a lot of work and admin. And now I'm just like, actually my hair is fine. And like, there's a lot of stuff or styles that I can do even with the hair that I have.
Arisa, you mentioned how when you had an interaction with that girl who made a remark about your hair being big, right? And you mentioned how you realized that was coming from a place of her identifying and I suppose being socialized to believe that there's a hierarchy in terms of hair, and that the straighter it is, the better it is, and that now your hair presented a bit of a conundrum because it just doesn't fit the mold of what she's been told is beautiful and acceptable. And that's always an easy place to get to after the fact. But in the moment, and even before that happened, I'm just wondering if there was any work that you had to do to consciously or even subconsciously get to a point where you're like, that's her stuff, it's not my stuff. And that what she says has no bearing on how I see my hair and the beauty of my hair. Yeah, so what I'm asking is, what kind of work had you been doing or had done in that area to allow for that not to land? And did it initially land? Or was it just actually that's not my stuff? Or did it land first and then you're like, no, actually it's not? Can you walk us through that?
Okay. I think definitely like it's been a journey. In terms of so having conversations about hair and attaching meaning to hair, and before that not really like having the right words or vocabulary for things, but you feel things or you see things, but you can't put them into like words or terminology. And I think that's part of like growing up, that when you like growing up and becoming more aware of things around you and society and norms, values, and things like that, and socialization. But I think it's also like being secure who you are, and you know, your identity, like having value in who you are. So even if people will say, oh, your hair, you know, is bushy or big, being like, actually, this is my hair, and like I'm comfortable, I'm happy with it, and being able to celebrate my hair. It's my hair, I celebrate it, and this is part of who I am, and this is what I bring to the table. So I think it definitely has been a journey, but I've never really taken like offense or like taken it to heart when people are like, yo, your hair is so different, or your hair is so big. And I think that's also like coming from a multicultural like background, and like, not that there's never been a norm, but like norms in the different cultures I come from, or you know, there's different norms, different standings. So it's always been like, like on one side of the coin, it's gonna be different to the other side. And also just celebrating and being happy with my hair, and like, what it means. Because I think also attaching meaning and value that, you know what, I am different, and that's like a good thing, and enjoying that as well.
No, I'm just struck by how, I mean, for as long as I've known you, there's been quite a strong sense of ease, and ease with self, ease with other people, and from what it sounds like now, from what you've just said, is that because you come from a background that is so multicultural, that's a melting pot of different cultures and experiences, including the way people look, that difference is not only a norm but celebrated, or maybe that's just the way you experience that. You experience it as a celebration, and I know that you are through and through a celebrator of people. And I just think it's interesting how, yes, you're welcome. I think it's interesting how, you know, being from that kind of background almost sets you up to not just use that as a lens to see cultures and races and backgrounds, but to see things like hair and different ways of being. And I just wonder, you know, someone who hasn't come from that kind of background. I have other friends who have a similar hair texture, who will not leave the house without straightening their hair, or at least blow drying their hair. I just wonder how, if you haven't had that kind of background, how do you create that kind of environment where different is normal, and it's not just tolerated, but it's actually celebrated. I have a complicated relationship with the word tolerance and tolerated. But difference, be it difference in culture and background, or something as seemingly trivial as hair texture, that difference isn't just tolerated, it is celebrated. How do you think someone can do that for themselves? Someone who feels like, I actually can't step out of the house with my hair in this particular state. What would you say to that person?
Sure. This is like when you were talking, I'm like, actually, this is a very deep question. Like in terms of like, I think it requires a lot of work. And first, I think it comes down to your identity and like who you are. You know, being comfortable in your own skin, like whether it's your own hair, whatever, but being comfortable and like grounded, you know, so that when you're talking also, I'm thinking of like socialization. So if your family is constantly telling you things, if social media is constantly telling you things, if there's so much like bombardment in your life, and you not knowing, you not being rooted in something or in yourself and comfortable or confident, then obviously you're gonna go with the flow, you're gonna go with the time. So if everyone's getting short hair, you're gonna cut your hair. If everyone's doing braids, you're gonna do braids, you know? But I think, it requires lots of work and actually being like, who am I? You know, what does my hair say about me? And asking the hard questions, doing the hard work. You know, there's room and there's spaces where you are able to engage and have these conversations and also find out, you know, why are people struggling with maybe not being able to walk out their house with a certain type of hairstyle, or hair down or hair up or no hair, you know, things like that.
Going back to what you were saying about it being such a tricky space to navigate in terms of getting to a point where you're actually confronted with the things that are rooted in insecurities, right? Where you're actually actively unpacking, why do I feel like I can't leave the house without straightening my hair? And it can come in whatever form. Even where hair is concerned, it can come in different forms, right? And you mentioned, you know, part of it can be this, you know, this need to constantly be chasing the latest fad. And there's nothing wrong with that, which is what makes this difficult. There's nothing wrong with, you know, trying out the latest fashion or fad. The issue is, are you hiding behind that to a certain extent? The issue is, if you don't, if you were to lay that down, would that make you feel uncomfortable? Would it feel weird? Would you feel less beautiful? Is there something that would fundamentally shift, or you think would fundamentally shift, if that thing wasn't there? And that's what these conversations are about. It's not about how you choose to wear your hair. It's not about me trying to convince the whole world to shave their heads, and you know, it's not about picking a side in terms of, you know, straight hair is bad. There's none of that is the point here. The point is, as you are rolled out of bed in state of nature, as a friend of mine calls it, like how do you feel about that? And obviously none of us want to like go out into the world right after we've rolled out of bed, you know. But is there something that just feels some level of disgust and shame when we're looking at that state of nature? That's what I'm trying to get at, and it's hard. It's hard, and it shows up in different ways, not just in terms of hair. It shows up in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. How do you think hair impacts one's identity? What kind of a role do you think hair plays in one's identity?
So I think obviously for different people, hair, it means different things, and also how much value is put or placed on hair. And I think like different cultures celebrate different things about different hair. And I'm just trying to think, like in terms of myself and like my identity and hair, I think I've had a very interesting relationship with my hair. So knowing that it's a part of me, but it doesn't define who I am, I think that's like my best way of putting it. And even so, attaching meaning. So for example, if someone says something about my hair, like I can choose to take or leave it. And I mean, if it's a nice thing, I mean, obviously like, yay to that. But if it's not, then it shouldn't affect or change who I am, you know? And I think often what happens is that we're so engulfed in what people say and how that affects like our identity, and we almost feel like we have to live up to the last comment of what people have said or say, you know. Yeah, just being like, actually my hair is part of who I am, but it's not like my sole like identifying factor, like, you know, without my hair I'm not gonna be Arisa or whatever. Yeah. And also I think with that, also celebrating other people's hair or no hair, you know, things like that. So being able to share and celebrate one another. And I think that also comes from the place or where you're at with your journey on whatever spectrum or, yeah, for example, hair. If you're comfortable, if you know your identity, then you're more likely and more able to celebrate other people. I mean, versus someone who's struggling.
I agree. If you're in a healthy space, giving out compliments, seeing people, celebrating people comes much easier than when you're not. So I think I'm going to end that there. I think that's a perfect place to end this. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this journey. And thank you for sharing your hair journey and your insights into hair as it relates to identity, beauty, and self-worth, and sharing some of your story with us and your vulnerabilities. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Thanks, girl.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you to those of you who have been watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Awesome. I'll see you later. Bye.